Hi, I'm Chef Rick Tarentino. You might recognize me from Home Shopping Network, or you can get this recipe and others at my website at www.chefricktarentino.com. I'm going to cook Spanish stew. This is a great recipe. It's hearty, it's rich, and you're going to enjoy it. We're going to start by sauteing our stew meat and vegetables to give it that rich brown color and flavor. Let's begin. Got my pan hot. Going to add about 2 tablespoons of a good olive oil. Going to let that heat up. I'm going to add to that my stew meat so we can brown it. Now my stew meat, I chopped about 1 inch, 1.5 inch square. Going to season that with some salt and pepper. I like to use the low sodium salt, like one from Ocean's Flavor. Right there you can see the browning occurring, which is very important. That's going to give us a lot of deep, rich flavor and color. And just keep churning those and letting them brown. Now you want to keep your pan on high. You want this brown font to form on the bottom right there. That's going to add flavor and color when we deglaze the pan in a minute. So let's just keep browning that meat. Now I'm going to deglaze the pan and release all that good flavor with about half of the wine that we're going to use in the recipe. So maybe 3 or 4 ounces. Deglazing is the process of taking all that brown fondant off the bottom. That font that's forming, do you see it? Now it's disappearing. It's now inside my gravy, and all that gravy and that juice is going to add a rich, deep flavor, and that's going to form the base of our Spanish beef stew. I'm going to cover that and let it simmer for just a minute while I cut the vegetables. Back here on our cutting board, I'm going to start to chop our vegetables. This is celery. It's about 1/2 cup or 2 pieces. Going to cut it on a little angle or square, whatever you like. It's about 1/2 inch thick pieces. Then we've got our leek. I like to split my leek down the middle and then slice that. Now, leek is like an onion, but it's a little more mild in flavor. And you can cut it thick and some thin pieces. I like to alternate it. And this is 1 leek. It's going to add a lot of deep, deep flavor with some color to our dish. Now we're going to chop some carrot. Same thing, about 1/2 inch to 1/4 inch thick. Add to that our garlic. Got about 5 or 6 cloves. Now I'm not going to chop this very small. They like it sliced or large. Then finally, about 1/2 an onion. I'm using a Vidalia onion or a sweet onion. You can use a Spanish onion here as well. Again, I'm going to give it a rough, coarse chop. Those are the vegetables that are going to make up our Spanish stew. To our crock pot, we're going to add in our sauteed stew meat. And look at that nice rich gravy that we have there to add in to form the basis of our stew. Now we're going to cover the crock pot and we're going to brown our vegetables to give it a little more rich flavor. To our pan that we cooked our meat, we're going to add about another 2 tablespoons of olive oil. Now we're going to add in our vegetables, our onions, our garlic and carrots, and our leek and celery. We're going to season it with a little salt and pepper to bring out the flavor. Then we're going to brown it. Don't worry about those brown bits again from the meat. That's going to release as the vegetables steam. Look at that rich color. All those flavors and aromas that are going to add those layers of flavor, smell, and taste to our Spanish stew. Now while your vegetables cook, it's a good time to prepare your rice. I like to use a nice Spanish yellow rice. Has that great flavor, good color, that we serve the stew on top of. So while your vegetables cook, or even in advance, go ahead and prepare your rice. Remember when I talked about the vegetables, you'll see that font removing itself. We're going to saute that maybe 3 or 4 minutes till our onions become translucent. You'll see them starting to turn right there. Our leeks are wilting, and that's going to add that layer of flavor that we're looking for. Now that our onions are translucent, a little opaque, I'm going to add in the flour. It's important to cook the flour in this step because raw flour just doesn't taste good. So that if you cook it with the vegetables, it's going to give it a much different taste, not as pasty in your stew. So let that cook and turn a little brown on the bottom of the pan, and then we'll deglaze it off. Now if you look close, you'll see our flour starting to brown. That's a natural process. That's what we want to occur. We're cooking the flour so we don't have that chalky taste inside of our stew. Now that our flour is turned brown and cooked, I'm going to add in the remaining 4 ounces of wine and deglaze it off the bottom of the pan, remove that flour, and add it into our dish. So as the bubbles form and the steam forms, that flour is going to release. It's going to soften and release from the bottom of the pan. See how easy it comes off as I move my spoon around? And we're just going to stir that to get it all up. Then we're going to add this to our browned meat. You could also see that, already see that thick gravy forming. That's how you know that you've got this flour cooked properly. The brown gravy starting to form. You can smell the wine cooking in there. Boy, that meat looks good in there already. Now I'm going to add in my vegetables. All nice and thick with our flour. That's going to form the nice gravy that's inside this dish. Now to finish this dish, we're going to add 4 unique ingredients. The first is cinnamon. Going to add about a teaspoon of cinnamon. Next, we're going to add some cumin seed. If you just have ground cumin, you could add that too. Cumin seed adds a little richer, deeper flavor. Then this is a unique ingredient, chocolate. I'm using about 60% cacao or dark chocolate. You can also use baker's chocolate too. That's going to give it its signature Spanish flavor. And then finish it with about a cup of fresh ground tomatoes and just enough of beef stock, about 1.5 cups to 2 cups to cover that liquid. Give it a stir, and you're going to let this cook for 4 to 6 hours to finish that wonderfully flavorful Spanish stew. To have all those flavors meld together, that chocolate to melt in there, that cinnamon, to really add some unique, rich, deep flavor that I guarantee you're going to enjoy. I think our Spanish beef stew is done. Let's take a look inside our slow cooker. Boy, those flavors have really infused. In fact, remember our secret ingredient, chocolate? I'm sure it's going to taste great. It's very aromatic as well. I can smell it already, even as I plate it up. Oh, look at that. It is just looking fantastic. And we'll finish it, just a little chopped green onion. Now that's a hearty and aromatic dish. Now this Spanish beef stew is both tasty and aromatic. I'm Chef Rick Tarentino. Remember to eat well or comer bien in Spanish.